Ontario's independent police watchdog will release a review later this morning, 11 o'clock this morning to be precise. It's a review some 2 years in the making into allegations of systemic racism leveled at the Thunder Bay police force. And these are allegations involving nearly 40 cases involving Indigenous people. It's going to be a very critical moment, and we have extensive coverage planned. To look ahead to this moment, Tanya Talaga is with me. She's a Toronto Star columnist. She had profound impact as the 2018 CBC Massey lecturer. Very happy to have her perspective this morning. Tanya, also the author of 7 Fallen Feathers, which is about 7 Indigenous high school students who died in Thunder Bay, Ontario between 2000 and 2011. She knows this story inside and out. She knows the community so well. So as I say, couldn't be happier to have you with me this morning. Thank you for coming in.
Yes,
and to look forward to what we're going to see unfold at 11 o'clock this morning. Have you been talking to anybody in Thunder Bay for a read on how the community is feeling, anticipating this report's release?
Everyone's been waiting for this report for 2 years. It's taken 2 years to investigate into the cases. When I was speaking to Jerry McNeely a while ago, he was saying there was 30 cases that are being looked at, and another 9 murdered and missing Indigenous women and girl cases are also being looked at on top. So you're right, it's nearly 40 cases. People are waiting. People want answers. So many families have wanted answers for so long on what happened to their loved ones and have felt that the investigations, the police investigations, did not go far enough.
So there is a lot of hope that there will be the answers in this report. Are you expecting that it will provide those answers?
I hope so. You know, there's always a feeling that we can do better. And I know the citizens of Thunder Bay are waiting for this report to see, you know, what is exactly happening with the police force. Is the police being fair? Are they not being fair? Show us the proof. You know, lots of media agencies have been out there reporting on the cases and what have happened to the people in Thunder Bay, Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. And so this is really an important moment for everyone to come together and find out what is in this long-awaited report. I mean, there have been questions in Thunder Bay concerning the deaths of Indigenous people for so long, dating back for 30, 40, 50 years. And so this really, truly is a moment of truth-telling.
Not just the what has happened, but the why it's happened? I mean, do you hope that this gets to that, the root causes, if there is indeed proof of the systemic racism that people believe, why it has existed and has been allowed to continue?
You know, sometimes things can fester, right? You know, it's really quite remarkable. And there's so many reasons as to why all of these things take place and what causes racism. And there is also so many inequities that happen to Indigenous people, continue to happen to Indigenous people throughout this country, you know, and all of those things pile on to see what we're seeing now in Thunder Bay. And of course, this is not just Thunder Bay's story too, right? This could be any other city also throughout Canada. It's the same issues over and over again.
Which is why it's so important that the country pay attention to this, because you're right, it's not a Northern Ontario community dealing with a particular issue. This is something that the country has had to confront. You know, the lawyer who represents some of the families involved, we know him so well over the years, Julian Faulconer. Again, this is a national message because he's talked about Indigenous people being seen differently. And maybe this report will get to, you know, the why, some of that, and the consequences of that perception.
I hope so. I hope we're eventually getting to this case where this country is opening its eyes and its ears and really learning and, you know, not looking away anymore as to how we have been treated, how Indigenous people have been treated in this country, especially by police forces too. I mean, for so long, so many families say, no one returns my calls, no one gets back to me, no one's listening to what I'm saying. This, you know, goes back to, my goodness, decades. As I was saying, this gets back to the inquest into the 7 Fallen Feathers. This also gets into murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls cases. Always, it's the same questions, and I hope that this report helps shed light as to why those questions remain unanswered.
Let's look to what might come from this. Substantively, may there be investigations reopened as a result of these findings? If they find they just neglected to pursue or just wrote it off too quickly, might there be investigations that reopen as a result?
Yes, I believe that is the point of holding this report in the first place, this review. So that is something to absolutely watch for at 11 o'clock. Will cases be reopened? Which cases will be reopened? How come he picked some cases to suggest they be reopened and others others weren't suggested to be reopened. There's going to be a lot to look for, and as I said, families and the people of Thunder Bay have a lot of questions and want to know the answers.
The other question is, in terms of change, is what happens to relations, what happens to trust? As you say, decades of fracture. Can one report really repair things on the level of trust between people in the community, Indigenous people in the community, and the police force?
There are so many stages in trust, in rebuilding trust, in building relationships. You know, this is one path to cross, but there are so many more. You know, we are still seeing violence in Thunder Bay. We are still seeing Indigenous deaths in Thunder Bay. Just on Sunday.
We're going to show you some. We could show some pictures of that. What a terrible week that was. We've been talking about both incidents in the news.
Absolutely.
Here we're looking at the force there, but as we take a look at some of these pictures, a 17-year-old
That's right,
just found.
Jacob.
Yes, and then a video which surfaced, of course, showing police dealing with a young boy.
You know, sometimes it feels like 2 steps forward, 10 steps backwards. You know, it's just incredible. There's so much hope in the community that things are going to get better, and then things just dissipate. I hope that this report is going to be one of the paths. Later this week, it's also expected that Murray Sinclair's report will be coming out too, and that's an examination into the police board. It's a police board's job to police the police. So there are many steps here in truth-telling. There are many steps here in trust building too. And it's going to take a big effort from everybody. It's going to take a big effort from the new mayor, Bill Morrow. He's going to have to come on side too and say, yes, you know, we do have issues with systemic racism and we have to figure out what the issues are. And also too, all the different levels of government have to come in here as well. This is not just Thunder Bay's issue. They have to come to the table too. There has to be adequate funding available as well. So all of the inquest recommendations, for example, with the 7 youth inquest, 145 of them, can be fulfilled. You know, Thunder Bay can't do it by themselves. You also have to have your federal government partners, you have to have your Indigenous partners, and you have to have your provincial partners working together too.
Okay. You've helped us understand why this is such an important moment. We'll have coverage, of course, at 11, ongoing reaction to what is suggested, the change that may come all through the day. Tanya Talaga, thank you so much for being with me today.
Miigwech.